Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to showcase one of my new Redstone builds that I've been working on. It is essentially a villager summoner system using a lectern. So this idea comes from wanting a trading hall that's a lot more interactive than just walking up to a row of a bunch of villagers. So instead of having all of your villagers standing in one giant hallway, I wanted to see if I could build something where the player can stay in one control area and then choose the villager they want and then have the villager come up to them. So let me just demonstrate how it works. So right now we have Silk Touch on the service desk, and then in the lectern we also have Silk Touch, and you can see as indicated here there's a match between the lectern and the actual villager at the service desk. So let us say instead of Silk Touch we want to trade with let's say Infinity. As you can see, now the no match lamp is on. There's not a match between the trade on the lectern and the trade at the service desk. So I'm going to go ahead and flip on the machine, and it's going to eventually call the correct villager to the service desk right here. So I'll just talk a little bit about the machine while it runs. So each villager is stored somewhere in this machine in a carousel. And when I use the selector, the redstone finds the villager I asked for and brings them forward to this service desk right here. So as we can see, the Infinity villager is now at the service desk. I can go ahead and trade with him, and there has been a match found. So the machine has stopped calling the villagers forward. So let's demo it one more time with another trade. Um, let's go. Let's see. Let's make it go back to mending. So again, just gonna select the trade that I want right here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and flick the search lever, and then the machine's gonna start running. So um, essentially this entire machine is just like a really big for loop, and it's just iterating through this entire this list of villagers, and it's checking to see if there's a match between what's at the service desk and what is called at the lectern. And when there is a match, the the loop stops running. And you just have the correct service desk at, or sorry, you have the correct villager at the service desk. So, pretty cool in my opinion. I also want to preface this and say I'm still learning Redstone. I'm pretty new to it, so you might be kind of freaked out at how much Redstone is behind this entire thing. I'm sure there is a much more efficient way to, actually have this. This machine actually only holds 8 villagers. Um, and I already saw on YouTube that someone made like a shuffler system with like pistons, which is a lot more compact than this, which was really cool. So yeah, there's definitely easier ways to build this. This was just kind of my own way, and just want to see and challenge myself and see if I could build this. So let's take a look at more of the redstone behind this now. So let me show you guys first an overview of the entire contraption. I know it looks terrible, and there's definitely a lot going on. And as I said, I'm sure there is a much more efficient way to do this. Over there is my prototype of when I built it with only 4 villagers. But here is the carousel system. So as I mentioned in the intro, each villager is sitting on a minecart that is at like a little divot. And essentially, when the machine sends a pulse, which I will also later explain, when there's not a match, they will send a pulse through this line. which will then send a pulse through here. And it's important that you don't have all of these rails going off all at once, because that's just going to mess up the timing. All of the villagers are not, they're just all going to get jumbled. You want it to go, one by one. That way, everything is smooth and all the villagers are actually lining up in order. So we have this minecart here. This is the first one to get called forward. So it just goes up this way, and then what I have here is an activator rail, which will activate this piece of redstone. That will then turn off this torch here, which will then cause this junction to turn the other way. And so this villager will go into this divot and stop right here at this powered rail. And then what happens is after this villager is sent over, we have to have some delay. So this is a lot of ticks, but I just wanted to make sure, what we weren't going to run into any issues where this villager was going into, that divot and not actually coming into the call desk. So it just goes after this villager goes into that divot over here, and this one is called forward to the service desk, and so on as we go. There's more repeaters for more delay, but this one goes into here, so every single villager in this list is advanced in one pulse. So let us go ahead and look at the rest of the redstone in this build, starting with this lectern selector system I have going on here. I put everything in purple blocks so it's a little bit more easier to understand. But essentially, if you guys have never seen a lectern selector before, the idea basically comes from the fact that a comparator will read and carry redstone signals of the block in front of it. The comparator will emit a signal strength that's proportional to how full the block is, whether it's a lectern with a book and quill on it, or a dispenser, or a chest, or a compost bin even. I'm sure there's a ton of other things as well that you can apply this comparator use to. But let's say I have this flipped on to page 4, which is Thorns 3. As we can see, this causes this lane to be lit up here, which represents that I have chosen the page 4, which is correlated to Thorns 3 on the book, and that causes this redstone line to be lit up. Now, it's a little bit hard to explain this part without kind of going into this hopper system that I have here, which keeps track of which villager is actually at the desk. But essentially, when you have the book on the lectern flip to whatever page, it will transmit this redstone signal down its lane, and then it will go to this torch here. And normally, as you can see, for all of the other lines, the torches are on, but when I have this redstone signal coming through here, it will actually turn the torch off. So these are all AND gates right here, color-coded in the green. And let me show you the other side of the AND gates, which is shown in this blue wool. Essentially, this part is keeping track of which villager is actually at the service desk. So what I have here is a hopper system, and in the hopper that correlates to the villager that is at the desk has an item in it. And as we went over before, the comparator is reading the fact that there is an item and it's in the hopper, and it is then transmitting a redstone signal. And we can see that means that mending is at the desk. Now, if you guys know anything about hoppers, it's that when hoppers are actually all connected to each other, they will continuously flow one after another. So the way I decided to go about this is by locking the hoppers. However, you don't want to lock all of the hoppers because if you unlock them all, what happens is the item is just going to travel. It's just going to travel down the entire line instead of it only traveling down one more block. So I think the best way to go about this is to have the system only unlock odd hoppers at once or only unlock even hoppers at once. So I have this little contraption here, and then when the system sends a pulse through here, it will turn off it will lock the odd hoppers or the even hoppers and vice versa. That way the item is only moving down one hopper at a time. Now, in order for the system to keep track of this, I'm using a copper bulb, which basically can store memory. But I think the other way that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the other way that you could do this is through what's called like a T flip-flop. Um, I think basically the idea is you just want it to store that information of whether it's odd or even. So you'll see this bulb lighting up when a pulse is sent through. So there's a lot of other ways to build a T flip-flop, but I just think the copper bulb is probably the most compact because it's just a singular bulb. But yeah, that is how the system is keeping track of which villager is actually at the service desk so that it can align with the rest of the system. But I just have something very similar going on from this side and this side. Again, there are so many repeaters, and please let me know in the comments if there is an easier way to do this build without having 10 billion repeaters. Um, you know, I'm sure there is an easier way to do this because, having all these repeaters also causes lag in the system. Of course, it's only one tick, but as you can see, like when I'm using this many repeaters, it does cost, um, a little bit of lag, right? When you have the pulse and the signals being sent through, which is kind of why, the entire system moves pretty slowly. But anyways, going back to what I had about these AND gates right here, which are color coded in green. So let me demonstrate here, but let's say we currently have mending at the service desk. So let's go ahead and choose mending on the lectern here. So as I demonstrated before, what happens now when I turn the page to lectern, it emits this signal. And then this signal is then carried into this torch. It turns off the torch. And then because I also have mending at the service desk, which is represented by the minecart being in this first hopper, this line of redstone lights up and then goes into this torch, turning it off. And because both of these torches are off, this torch, which is normally off, as you can see in these other AND gates, turns on. So it's like a inversion of the signal. But yeah, that's basically an AND gate in Minecraft. So all of these AND gates are also hooked up to redstone dust. You can also see I have these repeaters sprinkled here and there to make sure that the signal is actually traveling through. Redstone dust can only travel up to 15 blocks, I believe. So um, you do need to have, repeaters going all the way through in order to make sure that the signal is not dying. So I have here, let me just quickly make it new so it's easier to see. Whenever there is any match, this torch is on, and as you can see, it is the same for all these other AND gates, which powers on this line of redstone. This line of redstone goes into the match lamp. That way the user has a visual to see that, hooray, there is a match there's a match between the villager at the service desk and the lectern, and you can go ahead and trade. And then let me go more into depth into the redstone down here. So this is the no match lamp, and let me just show you. When there's not a match between the lectern and the villager at the desk, this torch is normally on, but when there is a match, this redstone signal is on, which then turns this torch off, and also thereby turning off the rest of this dust right here. So what I have here also is another AND gate. So this is where things get a little bit confusing because it all kind of just leads all into each other. So I'll do my best to explain everything the best I can. So as you can see, there's no match, meaning that this dust is on. And then because this dust is on, we have a little inversion moment where this torch is off. And this leads to another AND gate. Um, Again, it's hard to explain this now because everything kind of all leads in one into another. But usually this torch is on, so this is not this causes this torch to be off. However, when there's no match, meaning this torch is off, and there's a pulse being sent through, this will cause this torch to turn on, um, and this will then cause this line of dust to be turned on and a signal to be sent through. Now what this does, this one leads up to the blue hopper indexer thing I have here, so it will just move the indexer forward so we can keep track of which villager is at the desk. And then this black rule is actually leading up to the physical movement of the villagers in the carousel. So let me go ahead and explain the rest of the redstone leading up to this way. As you can see, there is no match, so this piece of dust is on, and when this piece of dust is on, that turns this redstone torch off. Now, I did make a search button, so this machine will only be, pulsing and working through when I have this lever on. When this lever is on, it turns on this piece of, or this line of redstone here, which leads to this torch. When this torch is off, this torch is on. When these two torches are off, I should clarify, this is another AND gate, so when when the user has the search system on by flicking the lever and there's not a match, then we have this torch on, which will then lead into another AND gate. Having this torch on will send a pulse, will send a signal through this redstone dust, which will then turn this torch off. And what I have here is a very big hopper clock. Essentially, these are just all repeaters in a line that are 4 ticks apart. I know this is an extremely long clock, which also contributes to why the system is quite slow. I think I was just kind of playing it safe when I was building this, and I didn't want to, if you send pulses too fast through, you have to make sure, the carousel like actually loops through, so you're not having a bunch of villagers bumping into each other and making a whole mess. So yeah, when this is off and then this sends a pulse through this torch, this causes a pulse to be sent through this torch, and then we have a signal traveling down, or a pulse traveling down this path right here, this path of dust. And what I have here is actually a little pulse extender. I was having a lot of issues because when I was actually testing out this entire contraption, I was having this issue where if I put an oak button here and I pressed it, it would work. But when I actually connected everything with just dust through this orange line, it would do this thing where like the first villager would go into this divot, but then this villager, like the strength was just not strong enough, or the pulse was just not long enough, and it would just kind of weakly go there, or end up here, and it wouldn't actually go the all way. So I did need to end up putting a a little pulse extender here in order for the signal to be like long enough and strong enough for it to move through the entire carousel. So that is the end of the redstone behind this. Um, I mean, not gonna lie, I would never ever build this in survival. I don't think anybody would. It's still kind of like a fun little thing. And I'm glad I was able to build this. It was a nice challenge, I suppose. As you can see over here, I have the prototype for it. I just kind of thought like, oh, I mean, this seems like kind of a good idea, instead of, having to shuffle through a bunch of villagers or having to uh, walk on a lot of walk down a lot of trading halls and look for the villager. Just comes directly to you. Obviously, there's lots of limitations. This thing is huge. It's slow. It can, lots of room for improvement. And then the really big limitation we have here is with this lectern. Now, redstone dust can only travel up to 15 blocks. So this, you can put a maximum of 15 trades into this machine, I guess. And I don't know, maybe there is a way that you can, have more trades with, or have more slots with the lectern. I'm not sure. Um, I'd have to maybe think about it or like look at a tutorial or something. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because this machine, this entire thing is just 8 villagers, and this lectern can hold up to, theoretically can go up to 15. So 8 is like maybe, just, a little bit more than half of that. So it's crazy. I mean, if I had 7 more of these here, how much more longer would all these AND gates be? And then I have to have even more repeaters and more lag and more everything. So, again, I'm sure there's a much easier way to build this. I know for sure, with the YouTube video, I saw someone making like a shuffler with compost bins and pistons, and that was 1,000 times more compact than this. But yeah, maybe if I built the AND gates vertically, that would have helped. Or, I don't know. But yeah, either way, would I build this in survival? Definitely not, but it's still a pretty cool thing. I also think that it shows, someone like me who's only been learning Redstone for a little bit, you can build some crazy things and make it somewhat practical. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this build. Let me know if you guys think of any ways to make it more efficient and more compact. But yeah, I'll have more videos coming out, and thank you guys for watching.